You may or may not know, but I have spent the last few months playing the same rotational save with Sims 4. Over the past 8 episodes, we have jumped from household to household, spending a week in each before jumping on to the next one, watching as these incredibly chaotic and intertwining stories have developed. But this episode is not going to be like those episodes. Today, we are doing a recap. So if you have any friends who love The Sims and who you think might be interested in rotational gameplay or this specific soap opera of a series, this could be a great place for them to start. Or if you've been here from the start, this episode will serve as a great reminder of what's happened so far, whilst also adding a lot more context about what's been happening off screen. Because today, I am going to tell you about every single Sim living in Oasis Springs. That's right, all 71 individual Sims currently living in my Oasis Springs save file. Now don't worry, I'm gonna try and do this in the least overwhelming way possible. Not to be rude to some of our lesser known Sims, but some of them are just less important to the stories that we're telling, so I won't go into as much detail for them. But in saying that, there are a lot of families here that have just been chugging away in the background without ever taking centre stage. I have put a lot of time and thought into each and every one of these Sims, and since we're entering a new phase of the story, I feel, I want to introduce them all to you, just in case there's anyone who catches your attention and who you'd love to see in an upcoming episode. Okay, so let's start with the familiar ones, shall we? Buckle up, because this is gonna get complicated real quick. Paige and Dena Caliente. Paige was the very first Sim we hung out with in this series. I made her from scratch, thinking we'd be sticking with her the whole time. Originally, I didn't even plan on doing a rotational style gameplay. I've personally always been a fan of the rags to riches sort of gameplay, so I made Paige as a struggling artist moving to Oasis Springs after inheriting a distant relative's house. She had a disastrous relationship with Mitchell Kalani, the downfall of which led to her briefly moving in with her best friend Nina Caliente. Whilst there, she fell in love with Nina's twin sister Dena, and the two of them moved back into Paige's house once Mitchell was out of the picture. The two of them then got married and now have 3 daughters, the triplets, Esme, Elodie, and Evangeline. They also now have a beautiful ragdoll cat called Antoinette. Paige is now slowly becoming a celebrity from her work as a painter, whilst Dena is a successful lawyer. Across town, we've got the main Caliente home. This is where Nina lives, along with her and Dena's mum, Katrina. I suppose you've probably noticed at this point that Nina and Dena are both green. In this save file, both Nina and Dena are aliens, which is in reference to some of their lore from the earlier Sims games. However, their mother Katrina is just a regular human. My explanation for this is that Katrina was one of the first trials for having a science baby, which is the Sims 4 way of letting Sims have babies if they aren't otherwise able to biologically. However, since this was a pretty new thing, there was a bit of a mix-up at the science lab, hospital, wherever, and a little bit of alien DNA got into the mix. So Katrina is still their biological mum, contrary to official Sims 4 lore, I believe, but they're just also accidentally aliens. And to make sure that Katrina didn't sue the science lab, they paid her very handsomely, which is why the family has this huge, gorgeous home compared to their more sort of humble lifestyle in previous Sims games. Is this a bit of a ridiculous explanation? Yeah, but it sets the tone for a lot of the other ridiculousness happening in this series, so buckle up for more of the same. These days, Nina and Katrina are still living in the Caliente manor, now with their daughters, and Nina's beautiful dog, Princess. So, hang on, if Katrina is Nina's mum, how does she have 2 more daughters who are the same age as Nina's daughter? Well, let me introduce you to our next family, the Huntingtons. Oh boy, let me tell you, this town would be a lot less complicated if these two weren't around. J. Huntington III, originally part of the Roomies household, is a menace who needs to be stopped. He's decided that all he cares about is getting rich and ensuring his family line, the Huntingtons, are a successful dynasty that continue on for generations. Just before he started his legacy-fueled crash out, however, he had a brief fling with Katrina Caliente. This led to Katrina getting pregnant with the twins Lena and Tina. At the same time, Nina Caliente was in a relationship with Mitchell Kalani. That's right, Paige's evil ex-boyfriend. Nina also got pregnant during this time and had her daughter, Zara Caliente. Both Katrina's relationship with Jay and Nina's relationship with Mitchell fell apart, and not long after, Jay and Mitchell ended up married to each other. This had been a long time coming, however, because they had been best friends when they were living together in the Roomies household, and ended up having a bit of a tumultuous love affair. This is why Mitchell and Paige broke up in the first place. So now Jay and Mitchell are married and have one kid, Theodora Huntington, who is the true Huntington heir according to Jay and his undying obsession with legacy. But Jay wasn't always like this. In fact, he used to have a whole other very loving and very happy family before he pushed them away too. The Lamore family. Babs Lamore moved from Chestnut Ridge to Oasis Springs when she was a teenager and quickly became best friends with Jay Huntington III. Their relationship continued to grow into their adulthood, and we met the two of them just as they had started a very, very casual romantic relationship. However, Babs ended up getting pregnant with Scarlett Lamore, the very first baby born in this series. At first, Jay wasn't really around too much, as kids weren't really his style, but Babs' neighbour was more than happy to help out a single mother in need. Dusty Clifford, a fairy who had moved to Oasis Springs to try and improve the environment ecologically. We then saw a bit of a love triangle developing, as turns out Dusty and Jay also had a fair bit of chemistry. This resulted in the three of them starting a relationship together, all moving under one roof and accidentally expanding their family with 3 more kids, Daniela, Rowan, and Jamie. But after Jay went a bit nuts, Babs and Dusty took all the kids and started building their own life from the ground up, eventually getting married in the last episode. These days, Scarlett and Daniela are both teenagers, with Scarlett in particular striking up a flirtation with Daniela Landgraab. But before we can talk about Daniela, we need to talk about Nancy. Nancy Landgraab is the most powerful woman in town, owning almost every residential rental in Oasis Springs, on top of being a legit crime boss. She is also a spellcaster. In fact, she's the head of the Oasis Springs Council of Spellcasters. I'm a huge fan of incorporating the supernatural and occult sims into my gameplay, so this save is full of spellcasters, mermaids, aliens, fairies, even a couple of werewolves and vampires. For these spellcasters specifically, I like to imagine that every town has their own spellcaster council, with one leader who then represents them in the magic realm. And for Oasis Springs, that's Nancy. As for Nancy's involvement in the story thus far, we've seen her have a steamy affair with the much younger man, Don Lothario, which somehow actually led to the two of them getting married and having a child, Ava Landgraab. However, after confirming that Ava is in fact a full spellcaster and thus suitable in Nancy's mind to be her heir, Nancy unceremoniously dumped Don and is now living it up in the Landgraab mansion, just her and Ava alone. So then, what's Don up to now? Well, he has moved in with Nancy's son, Johnny. Because, oh yeah, Nancy has 3 other kids. Johnny, who was kicked out of the family ages ago for wanting to be a comedian, Malcolm, who recently died in a fire, and Daniela, who was mentioned before as having a bit of a romance with Scarlett Lamore. However, since Johnny was kicked out of the family and neither Malcolm or Daniela were spellcasters, Nancy didn't want any of them to be the official heir, hence the affair with Don and subsequent birth of Ava. But before Don was with Nancy, he had a bit of a fling with Johnny. So when Nancy threw Don out, he moved in with Johnny and brought Daniela with him, as there is a bit of a theory that Nancy may have been behind the death of Malcolm, meaning Daniela could now be in danger too. Also tangled up in this whole mess, we have the austere Covington family. Geoffrey Austere was married to Nancy at the beginning of the series, but was dumped without question once Don came along. Just as Geoffrey was beginning his solo life, he had a surprise reunion with his past love, Carmen Covington, who revealed that the two of them actually had a child. You hear? She was only telling him now because Nancy Landgraab had used her crime boss intimidation to keep Carmen quiet all of these years. Geoffrey and Carmen have officially restarted their relationship and have both recently aged up into elders. They also have a tiny dog called Simon who wears a bow tie. It's a very important detail. So, that was a lot. Those were all of the families who were currently interconnected and like overly complicated. And it's mostly Jay's fault. We've still got a lot of households left to cover, but they're all pretty independent from one another and have a lot less drama. Remember, if I mention a household or an individual sim who piques your interest, let me know in the comments. My lovely channel members and patrons are able to vote on which households I spend time with in future episodes, and those polls are made up of the suggestions I see the most frequently in the comments. First up, we have the Richards family. Zoe Patel went through a real roller coaster of a journey, being in relationships with both Dusty and Dom before eventually getting married to her longtime roommate and friend, Gavin Richards. The two of them have 2 kids together, Arlo and Marielle. Brendan Ball is one of the original background Sims, having shown up as early as episode 2, being friends with Jay. He's not too interested in starting a relationship or a family, instead enjoying the single life as he pursues his lifetime aspiration of becoming a Zen master. The Ayala family is a fun one. Craig Ayala is a vampire. Interesting choice, being a vampire and living in Oasis Springs, one of the most sunny towns in the Sims world, but who am I to judge? He's married to Corinne Ayala, who is not a vampire, and has recently aged up into an elder, whilst Craig is stuck never aging, doomed to watch his love eventually die without him. The two of them have a daughter, Bristol Ayala, who is a vampire and is currently a teenager. However, she is soon going to be aging up into a young adult herself, but will then be frozen in adulthood for the rest of time. The Cobb family. Ren Cobb is another super consistent background sim, having been friends with Dusty again since episode 2, I believe. Her and her 2 daughters, Peyton and Krista, are mermaids. Again, interesting choice of a town to be living in for them. Why are they mermaids living in the desert? Well, at least their apartment building has a pool. Peyton and Krista have both recently reached young adulthood, with Peyton specifically having changed quite a bit. The most she's featured on screen thus far has been when we saw her getting romantically involved with Malcolm Landgraab right before he died. It seems she's taken that loss pretty hard, having adopted a far more severe look than she previously sported, and developing a difficult family dynamic with her younger sister Krista. Next we have the Courtney Burkes. Celia Burke and Aria Courtney are married with 4 kids, Priscilla, Philip, Ezekiel, and Layla. Aria, Priscilla, Philip, and Ezekiel are all spellcasters, making them the biggest spellcaster family in Oasis Springs, a fact that has not gone unnoticed by Nancy Landgraab, whose insistence on securing a spellcaster heir I reckon was definitely at least a little bit inspired by ensuring the leadership of the Oasis Springs Spellcaster Council didn't end up in the Courtney Burke's hands. The Temple Kong household consists of Simone Temple, her fiancée Brianna Kong, and their daughter Leah Kong. Oh, and their 2 cats, Zippo and Pixel. The Woodward household will be familiar to many of you, though Parker Woodward may be looking a bit older than you remember. We spent a week with her a while ago as her husband at the time realised he was gay, and the 2 of them split up. Parker got custody of their daughter Lacey Woodward, who is now a teenager, and the 2 of them also now have a cat called Shadow. Parker and Lacey are both spellcasters, and Shadow is Parker's familiar. Parker's ex-husband is Beckham Vaughan, an alien and pretty successful scientist. He's been living on his own ever since the divorce, though he did have a brief off-screen relationship with Edgar. Okay. Edgar Banuelos, the most requested sim in this whole series, who has never been properly featured, but so many of you latched onto just from the brief moments he's appeared in the background. And there is so much you don't know about him. I've been sitting on some really juicy secrets with this guy. So we first met Edgar in the very first week of episode 1 as he was Paige's boss when she was working as a barista. Edgar used to own a coffee shop next door to Paige, but was recently bought out by the unnamed corporate owners of the new bubble tea shop, where we often see all of the teens hanging out. Edgar saw this as an opportunity to buy the rental property next door and turn it into a nice family home. But he ran into some issues when Nancy Landgraab refused to sell the property. The compromise that they came to was that Edgar could convert the 2 downstairs apartments into one big apartment, but he's still holding out hope that he can one day own the whole building. This is because Edgar is wanting to expand his family, which is like a pretty normal aspiration, I would say, but his reason for doing so is perhaps not so normal. See, the aforementioned juicy little secret that I have been sitting on since episode 1, but has literally just never come up until now, is that Edgar is a werewolf. And not only is he a werewolf, he's like a top level, proper like alpha werewolf, meaning Edgar is immortal. All those times you guys were like begging to see Edgar, and I was like, yeah, we'll get to him eventually. I have never been worried or like rushing to get to him because I know that he's gonna be around for a while. But all of these developments with the coffee shop being replaced by the bubble tea place made Edgar realize maybe he actually wants to do more with his life. He's immortal. That's no small thing. He has the chance to do some real good in the world. So Edgar has been getting in touch with adoption agencies to adopt werewolf children. Because in my like headcanon for the Sims world, I reckon there's a lot of families out there who aren't equipped to deal with werewolf kids. So they just aren't likely to get adopted. This is why Edgar is pushing so hard to get ownership of the whole building, so he can have more room to help these kids and guide them through the whole werewolf thing. So with the room he does have, he has adopted 2 kids, Kaylee and Rudy. And they also have a dog called Wolfie, because I reckon the kids named the dog and thought that that was really funny to call a dog Wolfie when they are all actually wolfies. Okay, anyway, the Bowie family, consisting of Zayden, Teresa, Floyd, and Kellen. Zayden's shown up a few times, being friends with various people in the background. He's pretty cool, actually. I think he's one of my favorite background Sims. He's like an engineer or something. But Teresa is another one who has been there since day 1, like Edgar, but has literally never shown up in the story. She legit just hasn't ever befriended anyone, but if you go back and watch, you can sometimes see her randomly in the background. And now she's married to Zayden, and the 2 of them have 2 kids. Cute. Anastasia Padilla showed up when we hung out with Johnny for the first time, where we saw the 2 of them get pretty flirty, before Anastasia pulled a complete 180 and decided she actually was not into Johnny literally at all. She has a son, Nathaniel, who has recently aged up into a teen, and he's gonna be real trouble, I reckon. He's got the villainous Valentine aspiration, meaning he wants to break a lot of hearts, and he also has the macabre trait. So will be an interesting one to keep an eye on, I reckon. Next is Ryan Valdez. You may remember her as the woman that Beckham Vaughn was having an affair with before he realized he was gay. Ryan's really evolved since then. She's sort of like got her life together quite a bit. She's graduated uni and is working as a scientist and has gone from being a slob to being ambitious. On the other hand, we have her sister, Juliana Valdez. Juliana had a bit of a fling with Don Lothario whilst he was engaged to Zoe, but unlike Ryan, Juliana hasn't turned her life around since that whole experience. She's living in the new trailer park in Bedrock Strait with not a lot of money or opportunities awaiting her. I have a feeling she might not be sticking around in Oasis Springs for much longer. The Farris family is another fun one. Rex Farris is the only other werewolf in town and is married to Louise Farris, who is a mermaid. The 2 of them have recently aged up into elders, coinciding with their kid leaving the nest. Gerard Farris was last seen as part of the teen friend group alongside Scarlett and Daniela, but has recently reached young adulthood, and they've moved into the same trailer park that Juliana is living in. Gerard is a mermaid like their mum and has a very weird cat called Skrunkle. The Jackson Holding household is another one of my favorites, though I don't think we'll be seeing much of them in the future. Joe Holding and Quinn Jackson are very happily married, but they don't plan on having any kids, instead enjoying a fairly drama-free life together. The Craven family. Diego Craven has been quietly chilling in the background in a relationship with the fairy Judd. However, shortly after the 2 of them had a beautiful baby girl together, Briar, Judd unfortunately died from emotional starvation, which is a very specific death type, leaving Diego alone to raise Briar, who is a fairy like Judd. And finally, there is Raylyn Lang. She is pretty good friends with Zoe Patel, but other than that, hasn't really made much of an impact. She lives by herself and isn't far off becoming an elder, but she still dreams of one day meeting her soulmate and having a family, whatever form that may take. And that is all 71 of the Sims living in my Oasis Springs save. Are you feeling overwhelmed? I tried to not make it overwhelming, but even I'm kind of feeling overwhelmed. That's a lot of people and a lot of stories. But not all of them will be taking centre stage, as a lot of these families will just keep chugging along and progressing in the background whilst the main drama takes place. So where does that leave us going forward? Well, I have a few specific stories that I'm interested in pursuing. With Paige and Dena happily married and settled and successful, I think it's time for Dena to have her time in the spotlight. We also know that there's a bit of friction at the moment between Katrina and Paige and Dena, with Dena seemingly serving as the middle ground between them. So I'm keen to spend a little bit of time focusing on them. The Huntingtons have plenty of drama left to explore, I'm sure, especially as Theodora gets older. Jay has recently started expanding his business into the rental market, as he was the one to buy Johnny's old trailer and renovate that into a whole new trailer park. With Nancy Landgraab now no longer having a monopoly on the rentals in town, there's definitely going to be some drama as a new family rises to power within Oasis Springs. Speaking of Nancy, I want to keep an eye on how everything progresses with the Spellcasters in town. Nancy's already de-aged herself with a potion of youth to ensure she doesn't lose her place of power anytime soon. How are the other Spellcasters like Parker and Aria feeling about that? Will Johnny step up to try and reclaim his position as the rightful heir, seeing as he too is a spellcaster? And how will Ava Landgraab and the 3 Courtney Burke spellcaster kids play into things? And then finally, we're starting to have a whole new generation of young adults hitting the scene. Gerard, Peyton, and Krista have all recently aged up, putting them in the position we saw all of our main Sims in at the very start of this series. And as more of the teens in town start growing up, soon we're gonna have a whole new layer of drama to explore. But as always, I am super interested to hear who you guys want to see. I'm predicting Edgar, which, I mean, same. I spent some time decorating his apartment the other day and I think it's super cute, so I'm definitely keen to spend some time hanging out in there. But let me know in the comments. Tell me who you want to see, who you've grown attached to, who your emotional support character is. I want to hear it all. I love hearing your thoughts and opinions and theories. It fuels my soul in a way I don't even have the words to describe. Thank you as always to my lovely channel members and patrons. They have been getting continual updates as I figure all of this stuff out, and were the first people to be flabbergasted by the revelation that Edgar has been a werewolf literally the whole time. I appreciate the support so much, and I am super looking forward to letting them vote on who our next episode will be covering. If you would also like to hear these updates and have the chance to vote on who gets played, I can't put my, there is a link to my Patreon in the description, or you can become a channel member right here on YouTube. As always, small disclaimer, the YouTube channel memberships have a slightly cheaper option in addition to the other tiers because Patreon has a minimum of $5 a month. But other than that, both platforms offer the exact same benefits. Okay, yeah, that's all. Have a lovely day. Bye!